Hello, this is Darice. Welcome to Moon Life Astro. Today, this is called Soul First, Strategy Second. I'm going to be diving into Neptune moving into Aries and just a bit of the astrology for April. I'll give more detailed breakouts each week on my Wednesday YouTube forecast. But today, I want to focus mostly on Neptune and Aries since that's a pretty big astrological shift. Welcome back to my channel. And if you're new, welcome. Thank you for dropping by. Now, basically, like I said, I'm calling this soul first and strategy second. I feel like Neptune moving into Aries, that's really the invitation that Neptune is giving us at this time. Neptune left Pisces after 14 years. That happened on March 30th, 2025, so yesterday. And I just want to talk a little bit about what Neptune in Pisces was probably like for many of us the last 14 years or so, and then to give you a sense of what we're going to be experiencing, or at least what my intuition is telling us we're probably going to be experiencing over the next 14 years or so as Neptune moves into Aries. Neptune goes through each astrological sign, and it takes about 160 years to return to that particular sign. So this is a big shift. Neptune moving into Aries right now. And I think it's interesting that it's happening in 2025, where we have some other major shifts happening as well. And I think it's also interesting that Neptune moved into Aries against the backdrop of this Mars-Pluto opposition energy that we have been dancing with since November of 2024. And it's also happening at the end of eclipse season in March and during both the Mercury retrograde and the Venus retrograde. What that suggests to me is that individually and collectively, we're really being asked to look at ourselves internally, to continue to do this deep shadow work. I have a longer video on the Mars-Pluto opposition, and you can check that out as well. I want to look at how these things might play out for those of us who are solopreneurs, entrepreneurs in particular, but you can take a look at it and see how it might also apply to you personally as well. So Neptune leaving Pisces after 14 years and going into Aries, this basically signals a really bold new cycle for spiritual courage and creative leadership. Neptune is about our ability to envision, to fantasize, to dream, to see the larger vision. Neptune can also represent our spiritual growth, our spiritual empowerment, that kind of thing. But the shadow side of Neptune, especially when it's in Pisces, can also lead to us being really delusional. It can lead to addiction as well, not just when it's in Pisces, but Neptune in particular, in its shadow aspect, can lead to delusions and addiction. So some astrologers have highlighted that Neptune in Pisces gave rise to the celebrity worship culture, especially in social media. And you can definitely see the breakdown of that over the last 6 months to a year. People no longer necessarily following what someone does just because it's being endorsed by a celebrity. I personally think that's a good thing, that people are leaning more on their own individual intuition and following their own sense of knowing, deciding what's right for them based on their own individual values. As a solopreneur, I think Neptune moving into Aries can represent a shift from dreaming and dissolving to doing with vision. Another way to say that, really tapping in that desire to live your truth in all areas of your life, your business, your messaging, your offers, and also in your personal life. I hope Neptune in Aries will bring a rise of more purpose-driven and soul-led leaders, people who live from their intuition, or who are willing to really be open and upfront about how their spirituality, how their connection to the divine drives how they live their lives and how they support their business. Many mediums and astrologers for the last 5-10 years have been saying that we're going to see the rise of spiritual entrepreneurs. And I think Neptune in Aries is going to make that even faster, hasten that transition on a cultural and collective level. It won't be as odd or weird to have astrologers, maybe even consulting for like big corporations, or, I wouldn't be surprised if we see uh, big mainstream companies like during the next 10 to 14 years bringing in astrologers and tarot card readers and being totally open and upfront about that. Like that's a part of their strategizing and how they decide when to launch new projects, new initiatives. I think we're going to see the rise too of more solopreneurs, more people working from home, more people doing soul-led businesses. People are going to get further and further away of doing something just because it's a good way to make money or just because it's an easy way to make money. I think people are going to feel the call to really have their livelihoods be an expression of who they are. And even if there are people who don't necessarily want to do that as a business, I think we'll see people taking their hobbies more seriously because they recognize how important it is to have downtime and how important it is to allow ourselves to express ourselves, to express our creativity, to recognize that we are not always just about work and paying the bills and, putting a roof over our heads. Of course, those things are important. Of course, those things matter. And of course, we have to do those things. I think more and more people recognize, though, that in order to keep doing those things and to be physically, mentally, and emotionally healthy, that we have to have other pursuits outside of that as well. And I think we're going to see a rise too of solopreneurs who have these mission driven businesses understand and recognize that their businesses are not the only part of their lives. That is wonderful and as great as it is to have a business that represents a core part of who you are, that it's still important to rest, that it's still important to have fun, to have a life around your business, or to have a business that supports your life and not a life that supports your business. I think we're going to see that transition continue to become highlighted and more front and center for many people. And I think that's actually a really good thing. So one thing you can reflect on is where have you been playing small or over romanticizing things? That's something to look at. Where have you been delusional the last 14 years? I'll be completely honest. I have made some major mistakes in terms of investments. I didn't really look at the finer details of certain things. I got caught up in the excitement, the potential, and I let myself be deluded. I definitely did that as well with certain courses that I thought would help me become a better entrepreneur or a solopreneur. And I have just had to deal with the wreckage of some of those mistakes. And at the end of the day, I accept that, I made the choice. I thought I was doing the best I had with the knowledge I had at the time. And I recognized that there was a part of me that didn't listen to my intuition. I did have a sense of there was a red flag around this. And I ignored it because I thought the payoff would be worth it. And it was not. And I think that is a classic Neptune and Pisces delusional moment. And I think many of us have had those moments, either personally or professionally. And if you have, I just invite you to forgive yourself. That there's no shame around making a mistake, especially if you use it as an opportunity to learn and be better as a result. And I like to think that that's what I've done with the mistakes that I have made, that I'm becoming a better professional and a better entrepreneur as a result of what I've learned. One thing that you might want to do maybe this week or maybe sometime in April when you have the time is a candle meditation. And if you're doing it in April during Aries season, maybe you could pick a red candle and simply meditate on the new beginnings that you want to experience in Neptune and Aries. You could write that out. Maybe just set aside time to sit in front of the candle, visualize like 10 major things that you'd like to experience, maybe 5 professional, 5 personal, over the next 14 years during the Neptune and Aries transit. And then just write that down, put it in a journal. I have a journal where I write to my future self I do this every couple of years, and then I'll look back over it like 5 years from now to see what I wrote today to my future self. I like to write letters to myself for when I'm in my 60s, my 70s, my 80s, my 90s, and think about what do I want to experience? What do I want to celebrate? I write to my future self celebrating what this version of me is laying the foundation for. So sometime in April, I'll probably do this for myself as a way to acknowledge Neptune's transition into Aries and as a way to plant the seeds for some of the things I'd like to experience during this particular transit. So that's something you might want to try as well. I also like that most of April actually is pretty supportive. We're coming off of March, having the Mercury retrograde is going to turn direct April 7th, and Venus retrograde that began March 1st. It will turn direct April 12th. And we also had eclipses in March. So that was a lot of time to reflect and review. There was probably some emotional upsets since traditionally eclipses usually bring things to the surface that we're not expecting or we're not prepared to deal with. And it forces us to deal with things that we may have been sweeping under the rugs, things that were in our blind side suddenly come front and center. And so I know for many people, March was very intense emotionally. And I am hoping that April will sort of calm things down. I feel like the universe is giving a bit of a breather, a chance to integrate from everything that's happened the first part of the year, and in particular, March. What I really like as well is that I feel like April, we're going to have finally a sense of some clarity, especially that a lot of the Pisces energy is moving out and more Aries energy is going to be coming in. In addition to that, with both Mercury and Venus turning direct, we're going to have a sense of momentum and just a little bit of grace after this eclipse season. I, for one, am looking forward to that. I felt a little uncertain about some of my next steps professionally, and I've had to sit with that unknowing. Many of us have had to sit in the unknowing or sitting in the unknowingness, as I referred to in one of my earlier videos. And I anticipate that things will become clearer as April moves on. And so what's great about that, especially after both Mercury and Venus go direct, it'll be a great time to relaunch offers, to make some decisions about next steps, to re-engage with previous clients, and to take those next steps around that. I anticipate we'll also have more clarity around how we want to do our businesses, how we want to serve in our communities, in the marketplace. And in the process, I think we'll also have a larger sense of knowing of who we are becoming. And I think over the next 6 months, we'll get to experience the karmic clear out that eclipses can often bring. And it will be showing us how we're moving forward in a cleaner and clearer manner. A good thing to do this week or even mid-April is to revisit some of your Q2 goals with fresh eyes, and also look at where you want to upgrade any of your systems, how you track your projects, how you do your planning, that sort of thing. Maybe even map out the next 30 to 60 days of inspired actions based on what you learned about yourself during eclipse season, during Mercury retrograde, during the Venus retrograde. A potential spiritual practice, you can ask yourself what felt blocked or unclear during the retrograde and what feels available to you now. Another thing that you consider working with is crystals, and to help promote a feeling of integration and energetic clarity, you can use clear quartz, which is considered a master healer because clear quartz in particular, it amplifies energy, your energy, and also the energy of the crystals around it. Or perhaps you could use fluorite, which promotes mental clarity, focus, and grounding. I also want to talk about the Mars-Pluto opposition. We're going to be hitting the final round of that in April. Mars opposes Pluto for the third and final time on April 26th. It happened first in November 3rd, I believe, 2024. And I think again, January 3rd, 2025. Mars power. Mars aggression, assertiveness, our bravery, our courage, our ability to act and initiate. Pluto is the planet of power, transformation. So when they're in an opposition, a tense aspect like that, it can bring out power struggles, conflicts. And the other piece of that too is that we had Mars in Cancer for a good deal of the time that we had Mars opposing Pluto. Mars entered Cancer from September 4th to November 3rd, and then it retrograded back into Cancer January 6th. Mars in Cancer is not at home in the sign of Cancer, so it could lead to people feeling emotionally needled, poked and prodded. And I think this is one of the reasons why many of us are feeling emotionally done. We're just spent because Mars in Cancer has not been an easy transit for many of us. And I think the Mars opposing Pluto energy in the background intensified that for many of us. This feeling of like, where am I allowed to stand up for myself? Am I going to confront the bullies in my own life? Do I have what it takes to confront the bullies in my own life? I've had several circumstances professionally where I had to really stay true to my boundaries, honor my needs, and it was really uncomfortable. But I did it because I knew what was happening energetically and on an astrological level, that I understood that if I didn't stand my ground, that I would be setting myself up to have a very weak foundation, not only for the rest of the year, but in many ways for the rest of my life. I feel like the astrology of 2025 is really asking us to decide, how do I want to live my life? What is the foundation I want to build my life upon? I feel like a lot of the challenging aspects that we have had for 2025 is an invitation from the universe to do the shadow work, to look at where we let ourselves down, where we don't stand up for ourselves, and to change that. We have to begin setting ourselves up to support ourselves, to decide that I am valuable, to really act from a place of self love and self respect. Because by doing that, we're going to create the strength and the stamina that we need to confront the bullies in our own personal lives. And then that will transform the energy collectively. I really do believe that that will weaken the bullies that are impacting us collectively as well. So that's just something for you to meditate on, to consider for your own self, to look at how that may have been playing out for you these last few months, maybe even the last year. As a solopreneur, you may have also faced some of your own edges, maybe burnout, challenges around your own boundaries, either overgiving or needing to reclaim your own personal power. And however you've done that, acknowledge it and celebrate it. Acknowledge that you did the best you could with what you had, with where you were. This is not the time to beat up on yourself or to say, oh, I should have done it better. I should have been stronger. You did what you needed to do when you needed to do it. And you did it with the capacity that you had in the moment. So I think it's always important to remember that as well. And if you still need support and strength around those things, around those areas, then I invite you to get that support. I've been encouraging people throughout the beginning of January to get their self-care, their self-nurturing on, to find the right therapist, the right spiritual support groups, the right community groups. If you are refueled and refilled by volunteering for certain events or activities. For some people I know they like to do animal rescue. For other people, they like to just simply help out once a month at a food pantry. Whatever it is, definitely just find a way to build yourself back up, to help yourself feel connected to yourself, and to help yourself feel grounded, to help yourself feel connected to your communities. And again, all the other self nurture stuff that I'm going to continue to harp on probably for as long as I have this YouTube channel. You can never remind people enough to set themselves up to get healthy sleep and to hydrate and to get the massages and, do the fun things when you can, like the massage or the pedicure, the manicure. But also, just rest, take breaks throughout the day as you need them, stretch, walk, all those things, because the stronger we are mentally, emotionally, and physically, the easier it will be for us to meet the upcoming challenges that will be coming our way. Because I'm just looking at it strictly from an astrology perspective. Like, things are not going to get easier for a while. We got a couple of years at least to ride some heavy waves that we're going to go up and we're going to go down. I think energetically, it's just going to be a roller coaster for a while. And we need to develop the stamina and the skills and the resources to ride those waves. And I also do feel that it's my own personal belief that we choose to be alive at the time that we are alive at, that our souls come in to be a part of the solution. I believe many of us came to be alive during these particular challenging times because we wanted to be a part of the solution. We wanted to help humanity expand our consciousness at this pivotal time. I feel like what happens now in the next few years, how we respond to the growth and the expansion of human consciousness, is going to really have an impact for generations. And we get to decide, how much love is going to be a part of that foundation for the rest of our lives and for the generations that are following after us. So I like to do my work from that perspective, that understanding. What seed am I planting to be harvested in the next 300 years? I think it's good to have that perspective sometimes. Because for me, when I do that, it relieves a lot of the urgency, a lot of the anxiety, and it tells me it's okay if I just do my part. I do my best today, my best this week, and I just keep going. Having that attitude helps me keep going. And it helps me keep going from a space of joy and anticipation for the future. Because despite all of the things happening around us, I'm still really quite optimistic. I have a really high belief in humanity. And a lot of that is because I know a lot of amazing people who are wonderful and loving and creative and incredibly wise, especially spiritually. And I really do believe that there are a good deal of us out there who have that desire to leave the world better than the way we found it. So, with that, some other actionable tips. You can ask yourself or reflect on what am I no longer willing to force? You can look at the boundaries you want to create around your time, your energy, your emotional labor. You can allow your will or the Mars inside of you to align with your higher purpose, which is Pluto. And maybe a reflection prompt can be, where have I given away my power in the name of success? And you can also work with Black Obsidian to release negative energy and what needs to be purged. I also want to highlight too that we have some aspects to the North Node happening in April. We have Mercury is going to be conjunct the North Node April 4th, and Venus is going to be conjunct the North Node April 24th. And we have Mars trining the North Node April 11th. And the North Node is our soul's purpose, where we're going, where we're being led. And I like these supportive aspects to the North Node because I think it also is another invitation and a reminder from the universe to stay focused on our soul's higher purpose. Basically, what I was just talking about a few months ago. And again, just another opportunity to look at your business as a reflection of your soul's purpose, not just simple productivity. And as a part of that, reflection and revisioning. If you are feel drawn to maybe doing new messaging or working with different types of clients, follow that intuition, follow those impulses. At the end of the day, I'm just reminding you that this is a great time to be building a life and a brand that is rooted in meaning, meaning for you and meaning for the collective. You might even want to write a soul mission statement for this next chapter of your life. But that's basically what I had for you. Again, like I said, I feel like Neptune moving into Aries is saying soul first, strategy second. And again, I believe in you. I think you are amazing. I'm wishing you much love, peace, and joy. Easefully yours, Darice.